The Spot Track Podcast, talking sports contracts, the salary cap, and business of sports.
Today's edition of the Spot Track Podcast is presented by Bettor Edge. Visit bettoredge.com right now. Get yourself $20 on the house. Use code SPOTTREK at registration. There's an iOS app in the App Store or bettoredge.com. My name is Mike Ginnitti. It is Super Bowl weekend, but we're going to talk basketball. For the most part, I'm going to touch on a little bit of NFL at the back end of the show, which is the Hall of Fame class. I've gone contract by contract live on SpotTrack.com right now with the 6 new inductees or soon-to-be inductees. It's a nice, diverse class. I had a lot of fun. I love doing this every year, kind of going back into the woodworks of these contracts and figuring out, where running backs were in 1980 in terms of Roger Craig and just how impressive Vinatieri and Fitzgerald's contracts and career spans were. So that's the back end. I'll touch on some of my greatest hits from that. But Keith Smith is here. The NBA trade line is dead. And it was good, solid, plenty to get to. I've got a laundry list of true or false statements for Keith Smith, and he's going to break down his thoughts next. Yeah, I will.
Okay.
All right, Keith, the trade deadline is behind us. I know you're in a buyout season already, but before you, pump the gas pedal too much on that, I've got a true or false segment for you. Looking back at this deadline and maybe a couple days prior to, we're going to start with, the one that pays the bills here. True or false, Keith? Both Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks were smart to play the waiting game here.
True. It's already awkward. It's weird. Giannis is tweeting movie clips and quotes and all this stuff about how he's not leaving, but in the movie, the guy did leave. So I don't know that he fully gets what he tweeted out there from Wolf of Wall Street, but okay. But I think, for Giannis, I believe him when he said, and he spoke very passionately about Milwaukee is home for him in the United States. This is not as easy as just, I'm ready to go. Like he talked about how his kids were born there. His dad is buried in Milwaukee. Like I do think Milwaukee is very special to him. And I think what he was basically putting out there was, hey, I want to win. And I'm going to continually reserve the right to change my mind, but I don't know that he really wants to leave Milwaukee. So he's putting the pressure on them. So I think true to wait. Let's see. Maybe they get a really great pick in this draft. And then that pick is something they can turn into something else later, right? And maybe that's a trade piece or a great player to put with Giannis. So I think they were right to wait here. And the offers, if they do try to trade him, should be better and bigger in the summertime.
More picks available, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, more picks available. Easier to move salary around that maybe they don't want into teams that have a bunch of cap space or teams that are trying to build things out and all that.
Okay, next. True or false? Ownerships are using the CBA mechanisms to dodge the luxury tax.
True. There's versions of this when it is. So I'm going to use the Philadelphia 76ers as an example.
Mm-hmm.
They dodged the tax. Now they're going to say, well, but then we signed Dominic Barlow, who's excelled well on his 2-way contract to a bigger deal than we could have otherwise. And all these things. Okay. All that's true, but they're just dodging the tax itself. For a team like the Celtics, and everybody's going to scream and yell and call me a homer here, but whatever. They are dodging the tax because they're resetting the tax repeater in their ownership, prior ownership, and we can only believe the new ownership coming in, who is a lifelong Celtics fan and is committed to spending money. They said, hey, when we're ready, we'll spend into the tax again. And I'm going to believe them because they spent, almost $500 million previously on this roster when they were a title team and then a title contender. So, and for them to get under the second apron and all that, there are real basketball penalties with that. But when you get as forever, when you're within $1 million or so of getting out of the tax, you're going to get that done at the trade deadline. That's a universal truth, I guess, at this point, because $1 million into the tax might cost you like $8 or $9 million in luxury tax disbursement.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The Celtics will need to stay out of the tax next year to start that clock over, right? It's a 2-year process.
Yeah, it's next year is the easiest way to think through it. If you're in the tax 3 of 4 seasons, you're a tax repeater. So they could technically go back in next year, then get out the year after and all that. But it's easiest just to think of it as two years in a row.
I like that philosophy quite a bit, by the way. That's a nice play by the league to allow teams to kind of bounce in and out and not have to be locked into something.
Yeah, and what the league did under the new CBA, which is good, is it's no longer as now the owners will disagree because they're not getting that big check. But there's no like penalties roster building wise for being a little bit into the tax. They really hit when you get way into the tax, which again, this current CBA was designed to punish the highest spending teams and the highest spending over multiple years teams.
Take note, baseball. It's coming. It's happening. Next, the Washington Wizards are going to be a playoff team after this season.
Oh boy. Maybe. You know what? Let's be positive here. Post trade deadline. I'll say true. Yeah. They're certainly going to be in contention. The Wizards had been very strict on we are in deconstruction phase since they traded Bradley Beal a couple years ago. And it was really kind of 3 transaction cycles of we're tearing this thing down. We're going with kids. We're going to do the traditional route of eating bad contracts for assets. They even were able to get some guys in and they ate the contract, picked up an asset, and then flipped them in a deal where they got better. By adding Trae Young and Anthony Davis, they've signaled, I'm not going to say that it's over, but that it is, we believe in the young talent on the team because they didn't move any of the young talent. Alex Sarr, Keyshawn George, Bob Carrington, Trey Johnson, none of those guys moved. So they're in a position where they, I think, believe that those guys are proving to be good enough. We had Trae Young, we had Anthony Davis, we get the right role players around them. We can take meaningful steps forward towards playing competitive basketball next season. I'll be kind of surprised if we see Anthony Davis or Trae Young suit up for the Wizards once the rest of this season because they're going to do everything they can to make that kind of last great pick that they can get in this really deep draft. And then it's go time in Washington. So I'll say true.
Okay. All right. I don't think this one's going to, be too controversial. Knowing what we know now, this Luka Doncic trade, it's already an all-timer. It will be forever an all-timer. But has it risen to the level that this thing probably should have been investigated, Keith? I mean, truly, where are we with this now, knowing that Dallas had to give up on everything 18 months, not even 11 months later? It's almost like it didn't even happen at this point. It's so unbelievable. How did this get through the pipeline? I think in many other sports, Keith, this one really gets looked at as to what's happening here actually.
Yeah, how it got through the pipeline is this was in a league where it feels like everything leaks eventually, right? Yeah. This was the best kept secret ever in NBA history, you could argue, where it was, hey, we're doing this and we're not going to let anybody know. And when, even the reports that came out after where Dallas called Milwaukee and asked about Giannis. They called Minnesota and asked about Anthony Edwards. They never said it would be for Luka because they didn't want it to get out. And then ultimately it was, all right, we're going to get AD for Luka. It was at the time a mind-boggling bad decision, and it has only gotten worse. And anyone who is saying that they won the trade because they got Cooper Flag should have you don't talk basketball anymore because you're being completely disingenuous and dishonest, or you're trying to fire off a hot take, for social media play or whatever. I don't understand, where that could come from. That was you're conflating really bad process with, this. That's like me saying I'm going to go eat, 4 birthday cakes a day. And then I magically lost weight because I chopped my leg off. Like that's not how it works. It doesn't work that way, right? Like it's just, this stuff is crazy with that. So I'm going to say, I will say false that it should be investigated.
Okay.
It's just, but it's bad enough that I can totally understand why you're asking the question.
The fact that they didn't leak anything out, that they never mentioned to 31 or 29 other teams that Luke is available, makes it even more conspiratorial, right? I mean, it makes it even worse in my brain that something behind the scenes was so off the cuff here that I don't want to believe that this actually happened, because Dallas has reset themselves for 6 to 7 years. Unfortunately, even with Cooper Flagg, that's just what it takes to get a guy like that to become the franchise pinnacle piece of your puzzle. Look at the Boston Celtics, right?
I will say this for Dallas, at least the guys who are running the team now that reportedly weren't really involved in the Luka trade because it just got done by Nico Harrison and Rob Pelinka directly, which aside, people need to stop giving Rob Pelinka credit for that. Fell in his lap. That's like you saying, hey, here's $100 and me being like, for what? And you just walk away. Thanks. Cool. I'll keep it. In this, but with Dallas, the biggest failure in sports, I think all sports, but especially the NBA, with the way things work with very small rosters and with tight salary caps and things like that at times, is to just continue to cry over your spilled milk. Move on, clean up as best you can, and go. Nobody allowed. There's no time machine. You can't go back and undo it. So just start doing it. I think they've done a good job now with let's go. Even if the optics are like, holy crap, our return for Luka Doncic was an expiring old Chris Middleton. Like that's no one's gonna feel great about that. But if I'm a Mavs fan, I'm like, all right, we have financial flexibility. We have Cooper Flagg. That's what I'm going to live off of moving forward.
Yeah, you're right. Admitting it out loud right now at this deadline was the best way forward. So you can kind of wipe your hands clean of this whole thing now, starting in the summer. Okay.
And now the franchise can say we're officially done. Like that is, that is all done. The people who made that decision are no longer here. We're all rowing in the same direction now.
It's mind-boggling. Okay.
Yeah.
Back to smarter, sensible things. Did OKC somehow win this deadline, Keith?
Yeah, they might have. I know. It's close. The Clippers got worse, which is like, hey, great. Here's another pick to the Thunder. They, like referencing cake again. Like, I need more cake. They need another good high draft pick. They legit just swiped Jared McCain because it was, oh, you want a whole bunch of picks to get off some salary for kind of guard in your group that doesn't maybe fit? Sure, why not? We'll figure that out. And Jared McCain's a guy who, as a rookie before he got hurt, everybody loved and was talking about this as the steal of the draft. It's been a little awkward because Tyrese Maxey's so great. VJ Edgecomb's been fantastic. They have Quentin Grimes, who's been really good. So McCain hasn't kind of popped back into that role he had as a rookie there, but it's still a player they like. They need more ball handling on the Thunder roster. They made this trade, maybe not, with SGA. Got hurt and is going to miss at least a little bit of time. Doesn't seem to be serious, but they just need another guy who can kind of help with handling the ball right now. McCain can do that, and that could be a big payoff. But yeah, that Clippers pick looks a lot better now. I mean, this is just the embarrassment of riches there just continues to get better and better for that team. I want to highlight, because this is me and this is kind of what we do. They made a super small trade where they traded cash to buy draft rights to this guy named Balsa Koprivica. He's probably never going to play in the NBA, but they paid money, which is remarkable, that because when you pay money, you literally go to the owner and say, I need cash for this. And then they, quote unquote, it's like a wire transfer, but they write a check to get it done. And what they do is, with that is you get to now have him as a tradable piece and not have to use a draft pick later, because it can be just the something you throw in to a deal, and just file that away when in like 6 months, a year from now, it's the Thunder pick something up and it's like, well, what'd they give up? Oh, they gave up the rights to Balsa Koprivica. It's just, these are smart moves on the edges that they continue to make. Nothing is too small for them. They're gonna run down everything when they have a chance.
Continue to be impressed. Speaking of which, I wasn't impressed for the first 4 months of the season, and man, has this team turned a corner. have the Pacers figured out their gap year officially? Are they now headed towards exactly what we wanted them to be, which was ride this thing out, get your draft pick, and maybe get yourself in better position for 2027?
Yeah, there was a world with the Pacers where they could have been what the Celtics have been this year.
Yeah.
Like they still had enough talent on the roster, but I think what people missed with them was we all know Tyrese Halliburton, but then Andrew Nemhard went down, Aaron Nesmith went down, Benedict Mathurin went down. They lost a whole bunch of their other guys, and it just at that point the wheels came off. So now what they did was said, and they've said all along, we're going to be down for this year, and that's it. Like we got Halliburton coming back. We're going to figure out the center position. And they went and did it by picking up Ivica Zubac. Now they paid a pretty good price. They gave up 2 first-round picks, including 1 super creative pick in this year's draft, which is very risky because what they did was they protected at top 4. So if they are a lottery winner, we'll call it, because the top 4 picks are decided by the lottery. They land in the lottery, they keep it. Or if it slides all the way to 10, it's protected 10 to 30. Well, guess what, guys? It's not going to be much past 10. They're not that good. They keep it. But if it's 5 to 9, it goes to the Clippers this year. If it doesn't go to the Clippers this year, it rolls to a 2031 unprotected Pacers pick, which is the Clippers saying, all right, then push it further out because who knows what you'll be. I mean, 2031 is a lifetime away. So the Clippers could come away with, not by virtue of their own pick, because that'll go to the Thunder, still a really good pick in a very loaded draft. Here, if the Pacers have a little bad luck at the lottery, if they, slide in a weird place. But I think for the Pacers, they felt like getting Zubac is, I'm not going to say the final piece, but it is a necessary piece to lift us right back into being a finals contender next season when we have basically our same roster plus Halliburton back. Like it's going to be really good. That said, they're going to stink the rest of the way, and they're going to do everything they can to make sure they give themselves the best chance at being top 4.
Yeah, and the jockeying a position that will have to happen for them, at least somewhat intentionally, right, is going to be fun to watch. And they'll become one of those teams you're going to watch closely at the lottery as well. So I kind of like everything about what's happened to them over the past 48 hours. Speaking of which, Keith, are the Kings just kingsing? Is that all they're doing here? This seems to be the one roster that is both not good enough to win ball games and not tradable at the same time.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just replying to a quick text about a waiver guy. Yeah, so in NBA terms, we call this Kangs because this is just, it's I hate to beat up on them, but it just was okay. It's fine to trade Dennis Schroeder. It's fine to trade Keon Ellis, but you took on money for next year and for DeAndre Hunter, who's a nice player, but not that good, is very duplicative with what you already have in Keegan Murray, who's younger and better. So that's weird. They at least correctly made the decision not to give up assets to get off Sabonis or Levine's contracts. Keeping Levine especially was smart once we can't trade him because now he'll become an expiring because he's going to pick up that player option next year. He'll become an expiring contract and that'll have value in and of itself there, but not moving earlier on some of this stuff is where they made a mistake. It was awesome that they made the playoffs a couple years ago. We all loved it, right? We all loved the light the beam stuff and everything, and that team was really fun. But then since then it's been a series of moves that just have made them worse each time, but not worse with like we're tearing it down, we're rebuilding worse. That's fine when a teammate takes that direction. And now they're just kind of stuck. The good news is they're awful and they have their pick. So they should have a good draft pick, but it's just going to be, we're back to another year of, all right, let's get this young guy in here and we're going to figure it all out. But nothing is going real well in Sacramento other than let's end on a positive with them. They got Dylan Cardwell, who is a two-way fine for them. It has been really, really good. They got him signed to a nice contract. And now they've got a couple nice young bigs and him and Maxime Reynaud for when eventually they move on from Sabonis.
All right. Last one. And I saved it for last because I expect you have some thoughts on this. I've asked this before, but it's a good time to re-ask because there's been some trickle-down effects. I think a lot of things with what happened yesterday had to do with this, which is the financial structure of this league, which continues to change and evolve. And you're learning more and more about it every single week because of these things that come up. Is it working? Is it successful? Is it doing the job it was written to do? Are teams getting used to it, liking it? Do you think we're going to have to evolve into a different version of this? All those things.
Yeah, I'm going to say true. That it's working, and it's working. It's working as expected, and in ways I think weren't expected necessarily. One of my favorite movies is the original Jurassic Park, and a famous quote from that is "Life finds a way." Everybody, three trade deadlines in under this CBA. The first one, it was no one will be able to make a trade. It's impossible to make trades. Yeah. And we saw a bunch of big trades. Last year, we saw crazy trades. This year, we saw so many crazy trades in the last few days that Scott and I have completely changed how we're going to do the recaps for the site. Because we had 24 trades happened in 3 days. Like, I'm just not going to be able to recap them all. So we're going to change it to doing a team by team look. A capsule format instead, because that makes a lot more sense. But it's working too, that we have 1 second apron team right now in the Cleveland Cavaliers. Last year we had 3, and those 3, the Boston Celtics, Minnesota Timberwolves, and Phoenix Suns, all once they got nailed with the punishment of frozen pick in 2032. None of them are apron teams, and the Celtics and Suns are completely out of the tax entirely. Mm-hmm. So here's how I like to think about the second apron in this system is the second apron is like going to Las Vegas. It's fun to visit for a little while because you're going to have a good time because you probably got a great team. But if you stay too long, it's going to be really expensive, and then it's going to start to hurt. And that's where it is with these teams is you're going to see teams as they build up, like Cleveland, thinks they're a title contender, should be a title contender with the way the roster is built. If they're not, they won't be a second apron team next year. They'll start the process of going down. Some other team will emerge and come close. So I think it's working in that respect where it's done. It didn't kill trades, which, let's face it, a lot of the NBA love is around transaction cycles. People love trades. They love trade rumors. That's all still here. That's all still working. I think we've got to tweak something to what we talked about before. This idea of just ducking the tax. Yeah. It just feels off to me that players are being traded, and sometimes in some cases, even though they're getting paid because contracts are guaranteed, they're losing their jobs because of these moves. Like a bunch of these guys who were traded in the last day or so are not going to get picked up by a team again. And some of it is they're at the end of their career and that, but I would like to see some tweak where it is maybe we lock the luxury tax snapshot at the time of contract guarantees, but all that does is that'll just move the deadline for teams to get off money. So I don't have a perfect solve. That's a I like to say that's a problem for August, Keith, to think about when everything else slows down. But that part I don't love. But yeah, I think the system is working the way they intended, which is you can ramp up and be really expensive. And also you don't have to lose your own players. You can always keep your own guys. They did nothing to restrict on that other than, if you might be expensive like the Thunder are going to start to feel sometime within the next few years, maybe even this offseason. They're going to have decisions to make with team options for very key contributors, starters like Isaiah Hartenstein, Lou Dort. They're going to have decisions to make on some of these guys because you have SGA, Chet Holmgren, and Jalen Williams on max deals. Like it's just that's life, but that's where you got to figure it out.
Last one quickly, do you think the second apron system is the right way to go for this league? Or is there a part of you that wishes it was just a hard cap?
No, I don't want it to be a hard cap. I think hard caps force, if you're going to do a hard cap, you need to do less guaranteed contracts. And I don't want that for players. I think one of the good things in the NBA is that most contracts are fully guaranteed, aside from a handful. And I don't want players to be like it feels like in the NFL, you're kind of playing every week for your life, right? Like it's just tough, and that's a really hard spot to put players in. So if you're going to do that, you have to make that tweak. One, two, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it because we would have work stoppages for a very long time if that's the direction the league tried to go. So I think the second apron with some tweaks, I'd like to see them tweak some of the things that hard cap you. I think maybe we've gotten a little too draconian with some of that stuff. And I don't want to see a team in the place Dallas was in a year ago where it is, hey, they may have to literally the league said you cannot, we will make no exception for you to field a roster to exceed your hard cap. You will have to forfeit games. And that shouldn't be. We should have some way that you can make that work. Because who wins there, right? Like other than the team that picked up a win by forfeit. If the team's in a place they're forfeiting games, they're probably going to lose anyway. So like the fans lose out. Like it's just not great. So I would like to see little tweaks made, but I'm okay with the upper end spending limits the way they put it with all the flexibility in between. And quite frankly, Mike, it keeps me gainfully employed. So let's not make this too simple to understand.
Go back to work, Keith. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Keith has trade recaps coming. Keith has buyout pieces already live on Spot Track. You can figure out who's going to bounce around even in the next couple of days here. And by the way, that's a pretty important piece to this puzzle for many of these contending teams who have cleared space specifically to be able to add one or two buyout players in the next few days and make that stretch run towards the playoffs, which, by the way, don't finish for about 4 more months, maybe 4.5 more months. This season is quite the marathon. Let's get to some football. We've got some NFL Hall of Fame inductees announced last night at the Honors Program. The headliner's Drew Brees, of course. Look, this is just one of those stories we don't have, and yet we have one in this Super Bowl right now. We have not so much a Hall of Famer, obviously, but we have a player who was drafted, did okay, then fell out of graces with his drafted team, was picked up in free agency, and went on to great things. All right, Sam Darnold is the mini version of this right now, and I'm giving Darnold a heck of a lot of credit there because he's no Drew Brees. So let's think about what Drew Brees was. He was the number 32 pick, which back then was a second-round pick by the San Diego Chargers. Again, back then, this was 2001. He ended up signing 7 contracts, and in the midst of this, we had franchise tags. Okay, we had a franchise tag after his rookie deal in San Diego. He played on it. It was an $8 million tag. That was 2005. Then he hit the open market. The New Orleans Saints says, here's 6 years, $60 million. But it was really just a 1-year contract if you looked at the nuts and bolts of the guarantee structure. $20 million all in one season. He was great. He played out the entire contract. It led to yet another franchise tag. This time it was over $16 million. This time that turned into an extension. And that extension, was 2 for $44. That extension, though, became a 5 for $100 million deal with $40 million fully guaranteed, $40 million in 2020 in that first season. He became the first $20 million per year player, the highest average paid player in the history of football. That's what this all turned into. So that's what a franchise tag, free agency, 1 great year, filling out your whole contract, and then turning into the highest paid player in the history of football. That's what this position can do for you if you're in the right spot and the right moment, and the timeline all kind of works in your favor. He'd play out 4 years of that, and then he turned it into another 2-year contract, and then it became what we know, right? The Brady model. It's going to be 2-year extensions, but 1-year deals. 2-year extensions, but 1-year deals. He finished off at about $25 million per year for 5 straight seasons and called it a career. $271 million earned. That's still 8th all time in the NFL, according to our data. So it's a hell of a run, a hell of a career. He's a very worthy first-time ballot Hall of Famer. Speaking of which, Larry Fitzgerald, drafted out of Pitt, number 3 overall by the Cardinals. This is 2004. He signed a $52 million rookie contract back before the wage scale, of course. He played out 4 years of that, and everybody looked around and said, that's enough of that. Let's get this guy in a long-year deal. It was a 3-year, 30 extension. So essentially another 5-year contract, right, when you put it all together, which took him through 2010. And that's when things got real. He was 28 years old. He was the best wide receiver in football. This was not a great team, but it was a good team, and he was the pinnacle of it. They gave him a 7-year, $113 million extension, which was, I can tell you, because I was kind of just getting going with this new CBA and Spot Track as a whole. In August of 2011, this was one of those contracts that we all looked around the room and said, this is what we have to figure out. We have to know everything about this contract and all these massive NFL contracts that were coming on the heels of this latest hard cap situation in 2010. So it was $16.1 million per year. He was the highest average paid wide receiver in history. He was the fourth highest average paid player in football at the time as a wide receiver. It was Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, and then Larry Fitzgerald at $16.1 million. He got 4 years of that deal, and then he started the Tom Brady model. 2-year deal, 1-year deal, 2-year deal, 1-year deal, 1-year deal. He always made great money. He made over $11 million each of the last 6 years, despite the fact that he was high 30-year-old and still doing a job on the field. So 8 contracts in total, $180 million total, which right now is still 25th all-time amongst wide receivers, a position that has blossomed financially over the past 5 years, and he's still in that top 25. Luke Kuechly, man, this story, it's just one of those, it ends bad with the head injuries and the injuries as a whole. And I even hated having to do this kind of contract scheme because there was so much more left in the tank, at least, in our brains. But it's just the nature of the beast. Sometimes it's going to get you. He was the number 9 pick overall back in 2012 out of Boston College. Got himself a rookie wage scale 4 for 12 entry-level contract. And after 3 seasons, when he became eligible, Carolina extended him as quickly as humanly possible. They exercised his 5th-year option, put him on a 5 for $62 million extension. And he did earn $53 million of that, 5 years worth, before he had to step away and retire in 2020. So he did get himself about $63 million, but that's over 2 contracts, a rookie deal and the rookie extension. And unfortunately, a career much, much too short. All right, one of the GOATs, Adam Vinatieri, an undrafted free agent out of South Dakota State in 1996. The Patriots gave him a $1,000 signing bonus on that 2-year minimum deal. He never went away, okay? Most of the time, these UDFAs, they get signed, they get their signing bonus, they go to camp, they get cut, they bounce around practice squads for some years. No, he never moved an inch, okay? It was Patriots for, I believe, 6 more contracts, and then he flipped over to Indy, but it was just incremental. You could see the respect, the reputation growing with the contracts that he signed. So it was a minimum to start. He took a $238,000 tender in 1998, turned that into a $2.5 million contract the following season. And then after that, it became a $5.5 million contract. So he is at the top 2 kickers in terms of average pay by his 3rd year and then really throughout the rest of his career. They gave him a franchise tag in 2005. He was 33 years old at that point in time. So he had played through his prime years, we thought. Okay. And he played out that tag. It was a $2.5 million tag. He played it out. That'd be his final year in New England. He'd hit free agency for the first time in 2006 as a 34-year-old. And the Colts gave him a 5-year, $12 million contract, making him the highest average paid kicker at $2.4 million. So again, 34 years old, and his second career is just beginning. We would soon find out. He'd play that out. He'd sign another $10 million contract, another $5 million contract, a $6 million contract. And it goes on and on and on with 1-year deals through age 47. And he made $3.8 million in his age 47 career. That's how stable this guy was. I looked at the stats quickly. He had a terrible final season. I think he hit 70% of his field goals. But prior to that, he was an 85% plus kicker right on through from UDFA through age 46. So, of course, the wheels were going to fall off. But he was a high-paid kicker every single season of his career, a 24-year career, which earned him $51 million. It's still 3rd all-time for kickers. It's Sebastian Janikowski at 53 and Graham Gano at 53, and that's it. Adam Vinatieri is still right there at $51 million, a champion, a walk-off champion at times, just one of the most illustrious kicking careers we'll ever see over 24 years. And finally, Roger Craig, one of my favorite players growing up, one of my favorite football trading cards every single year. This is just one of those dudes that did everything. He was one of the first do everything versatile running backs that this league had ever seen. He was one of the linchpins to Bill Walsh's outstanding offense in San Francisco, obviously, but he was one of the reasons this thing all worked. He was so versatile. He did everything so well that everybody else was sort of unlocked, including Montana and Young and everybody. It was 7 seasons in San Francisco, basically a minimum contract. He was the number 49 overall pick, but it was a 3 for $560 in terms of that first rookie contract. He turned that quickly into $2.5 million and the next contract. Then we went through the lockout a little bit and things got a little weird. He ended up joining the Raiders and really never kind of resuscitated things properly. He was in and out a little bit, made about $800,000 with them. He'd make about $800,000 the next couple of seasons in Minnesota, and that was it. $7 million earned in 11 seasons, which is astounding, but we're talking about 1980s football here. He finished in 1993 with Minnesota on a $625,000 salary, but it's about $7 million earned total, which, now is going to be the top running back in the draft, their signing bonus in 2026. So obviously inflation matters, but it's just kind of what you did. This was one of those positions that did everything back in the day, and there wasn't a lot of pay for play at this position, even back then when we were in the heyday of these high-flying running backs. So really good to see him get into the Hall of Fame, but obviously he doesn't have near the financial resume that many of these players that we're talking about had throughout their illustrious careers. Okay. Plenty to read on Spot Track. Follow us on socials. It's going to be a lot of social heavy stuff in terms of contract breakdowns and trade backups and buyout stuff with the NBA. The NHL's heading into break. We've got a lot of stuff to update with them coming up in terms of their trade deadline. Baseball's getting to the finish line. Many of the youngsters have reported. Pitchers and catchers will report next week. We'll be finalizing our payroll estimates for that. Many of them are in right now. Some of the bigger free agents have now signed. So it's kind of proof in the pudding with some of those numbers. We'll see where we get over the course of the next couple of weeks. But we're at that point in time where Super Bowl Sunday, Monday morning starts the waiver period. Many of the Seahawks and some of the other teams' decisions will hit on February 9th, and we're off and running. Tag season, waiver season, extension season, and then obviously we'll get ourselves closer to free agency as well on March 11th. So we're ready. Plenty of views. I've been tweeting out. I'll continue to do that, but file away questions at Spot Track on all the socials. We'll try to keep up with the rat race as much as humanly possible. For Scott Allen, my name is Mike Ginnitti. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Spot Track Podcast.